Hey folks, welcome to episode 116 of the Lessons from the Cockpit show. I am your host, Mark Hasara, and for over 25 years, I flew the KC-135 Stratobladder, like you see here above me. On the Lessons from the Cockpit show, we interview some of the most fascinating and intriguing pilots, aircrew members, maintainers, and aviation enthusiasts from all over the world. We want to hear their stories, but more importantly, what did they learn from being in these extreme and extraordinary military, commercial, and even general aviation environments? The purpose of our show is to illustrate how does the aviation world work, but more importantly, increase critical thinking skills both in the air and on the ground. And today, I'm interviewing somebody I've interviewed before, but recent events in Caracas has made interviewing him really important. We're talking again with Greg Calvert from the 160th SOAR. This episode of the Lessons from the Cockpit show is brought to you by Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home, office, or hangar. These are beautiful renditions of famous airplanes, like the 135 you see here behind me. Printed on vinyl, 4, 6, and 8 feet long. We did a 30-footer for one guy that you can peel off and stick on your walls. We have about 160 ready to print, but we can do custom for you. So if there's an airplane that you love, you want to see your name on it with a weapons load from a particular unit, go to wallpilot.com and fill out the form and send it to us. I want to thank those of you who are members of the Patreon Club and our All Ranks Club. That's where you can go to get additional information. Now, an alibi. Yeah, I've been gone for like 3 months. I have been focusing strictly on my YouTube channel and the shorts that I've been doing and kind of let the podcast kind of go by the wayside, okay? Apologize for that, but the YouTube channel is now more than paying for itself. And the really cool thing is I've been able to help my good friend Ward Carroll Mooch out while he's had some surgery and is dealing with a medical issue, which is why I did this episode with Greg Calvert. When I saw the events in Caracas, the 160th involvement, I knew right away who I needed to call and talk to. Greg Calvert has graciously come back on the show. And now, folks, grab an adult beverage of your choice, sit down, strap in, because Greg's going to walk us through the Battle of Roberts Ridge. And he was the 2005 160th Tactician of the Year. So he's going to walk us through, hey, when you're planning a mission like Caracas, not only the plan, but the execution of it, what are you as a 160th pilot thinking, particularly as the tactics guy that's planning it? So let's get going with my good friend, Chief Warrant Officer Greg Calvert.
All right.
Greg Calvert, it's so great to have you back on again,
Mark,
brother. How are you, man?
I
You
am
know?
doing great. It's great to talk to you again. Great to be here with you again.
Yeah, are you getting through Snowmageddon back there or whatever the weather's going to
You
do to you guys?
know, for the last week, there's been no milk, no bread in any store
Oh,
in Blacksburg and Christiansburg, Virginia. But it hasn't even started snowing yet. So, my original degree, I never worked in the field, was meteorology. So I kind of geek out on all the models and everything. But all of them have completely missed the boat because it hasn't even started snowing here yet.
I didn't know you're a meteorologist.
I studied meteorology. I don't like to call myself a meteorologist because I've
Okay,
never worked in
okay.
the
All
field,
right, all right. We'll stick with
but it was
helicopter
always
pilot.
interesting to me.
Outstanding. So, first off, tell us who you are.
So, uh, Mark Hasara has helped make me a little bit well known, but
Ah,
um, Greg Calvert, career helicopter and airplane pilot for the Army. Spent my time doing both. Spent much of my career in the special operations community. Retired in 2016. Spent some time drifting around in the commercial pilot world in both helicopters and jets. And then I finally found I think, what is my calling, as
Yeah.
now I'm teaching Army ROTC at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Oh, and isn't that great, man, being in front of those young kids, you know?
It is. They chat, but from a position where they challenge me every day. I have to
Yeah.
be at my best every day, because they're going to challenge me to help them get to where they want to go, is to be a leader in the United States Army. So while it's a lot of fun for me, it keeps me young and keeps me challenged to keep doing good work.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know what? I was just down at my old ROTC unit here in Utah the other day, you know, and all the guys are like going, we've heard about you, okay, you know, and the great thing is they always want to hear stories, okay? And we're going to talk a lot of
Yes,
good stories today, okay? The first story I want to hear is how did you become interested in aviation and particularly Army aviation?
it's kind of weird, Mark. I wasn't one of those kids that always wanted to be a pilot. Um, Matter of fact, didn't even think about it until after I joined the Army. I spent 1 year in college at the University of Louisville. Not very successful as a college student at 18. Um, uh, so I said, what am I going to do? And I decided to join the Army. I decided to jump out of airplanes. I was a infantry medic in the 82nd Airborne Division. So I finally got to fly something, but it was just a parachute in the Army. But I'll tell you, one February morning, just after dawn, we're walking through the woods, and we are told that aircraft are going to be out looking for us. So it's cold, it's wet, it's just absolutely miserable for an infantryman. Or if you're a ranger, it's absolutely perfect conditions.
This doesn't
But
suck enough.
exactly, this does not suck enough. But off in the distance, hear this wop, 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 that we knew was a cobra. The cobra and the Huey, they sound similar, but a little bit deeper wop wop coming
Yeah.
from a cobra. So we all get down in the bushes, we're hiding, we're making sure that we can't be seen by this aircraft, and two cobras just zoom right over all of our tree line. And at the end of the tree line, they they stop, and they lower down, they turn around, start coming towards us, and we think we're hidden completely. And they're right over us. And in the Cobra, you were literally, because I flew Cobras at the beginning of my career, your helmet is connected physically to the aircraft and moves an arm that moves the gun. And I saw that guy in the back seat, and then that gun depressed towards us, and that 20 millimeter barrel started spinning at us, telling us that you didn't do a very good job of hiding and we found you. And I thought, holy crap, I want to do what that guy's doing and not be down here
Yeah.
in the cold and the mud. So fast forward a couple years later, I get the opportunity to become a flight medic on the back of medical evacuation helicopters.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal experience, and I was fortunate enough to have a commander, a guy by the name of Pete Fast, and a bunch of Army warrant officers that pushed me, saying, "Hey, you need to be up front with us and not in the back anymore." And that's how I ended up getting to flight school,
Oh, outstanding, man. And see,
with no intent ever to really get there, but it kind of reinforces how important it is to have good mentors. Because if I hadn't had
absolutely.
mentors like that to push me into that, I wouldn't have had the phenomenal career that I had up until this point. And
Yeah.
I thank them every day that they saw something in me that I didn't see at that time, to push me down that road.
Oh, man. And see, I had the same thing, okay? But I had a lot of negative too, okay? because I wanted to be a pilot ever since I was 5 years old. Standing on the hood of my grandpa Andy's car at the end of the Los Angeles International runways. Saw a 707 go over my head and said, "Why work for a living when I can do this?" And from
You
then on, I wanted to fly 707s and got to do it, you know. And
and boy, you
that
did
was
the 707 of 707s,
yeah,
the
yeah,
KC
yeah.
135.
Yeah, and like I tell everybody, I go all over the world passing gas for a living, and I loved every minute of it. I loved every minute of it. Uh,
It's
and
amazing how it gets into your blood, isn't it? And then it becomes something
yes,
not just that you want to do, but something that you have to do.
yeah. The only time I was nervous in the airplane was like when I was getting a check ride. Okay, and you always get nervous when you're getting a check ride. It's just
Of course.
it's just the nature of the beast. Okay, unless you're giving the
I
check
still
ride.
get nervous when I get I'm still flying as a
Hmm.
civilian, as a private pilot now, and
Yeah,
I get nervous when I have to have my biennial with my
yeah,
club check pilot.
yeah. It's just one of the nature of the beast. Okay. Anyway,
Yes.
so you start flying Cobras, you said?
So I started flying Cobras, but for a very short time
Hmm.
because that was the point where the first Gulf War happened.
Yeah,
And the Army decided the Cobra wasn't sufficient to do the mission anymore. They got rid of Cobras. Um, and I was pushed towards the AH-64 Apache. Luckily, I
uh,
had people I knew um, at then PERSCOM, but
yeah,
Human
yeah,
Resources Command, that
yeah,
I was begging and pleading, hey,
yeah,
give me a Black Hawk.
yeah,
And I was fortunate enough to get Black Hawks once the Cobras were disbanded,
yeah.
and I went from there.
So you fly the Apaches. How does one get chosen to go to the 160th SOAR? I mean, that's like the best of and I hate using this all the time, the best of the best. That's like the 1% of the 1%. How did that happen?
But I tell you what, because people think that the guys who get selected to the 160th are already supermen. And that's one of the myths I try to dispel is that when you go to assess for the 160th, and I think we're going to talk about that,
Yeah,
but they're not looking that you're Superman or Chuck Yeager, the world's best pilot. What they really want is, are you trainable? And are you a good fit personality with the organization? Because everybody is so tight. They can train you to do anything else. I was a Black Hawk pilot. They needed Chinook pilots at the time, and they turned me into a Chinook pilot. So, um, going back to your original question, I never really considered myself SOAR material until I went to the UH-60 instructor pilot course. Became a Black Hawk instructor, and I went through the course with a guy who was already in the 160th. Um, Phenomenal aviator, but everybody would misjudge him. He was really low key, kind of a good old boy,
hmm,
country boy kind of
yeah,
type,
yeah,
and it was easy to misjudge him for the professional that he really was. But he talked me into putting together a packet. We worked together. I was far less experienced than some of the other guys with tactical
yeah.
kind of flying, and he helped to bring me back up to speed during the course. Um, awesome aviator. Later on, he would become my mentor and a great friend. So it was kind of by happenstance that we kind of came together at the same time. We kind of clicked. He said, "Hey, you'd be the kind of person that would fit in well the organization." I said, "I don't know. I'll think about it." The next thing I know, there's a packet in the mail for me to fill out.
Yeah,
He went ahead and recommended me. So filled out the packet. All right, we'll see where it goes. And eventually, I was offered to come and assess to go through the tryout program
mhm,
to be part of the 160th, and kind of history after that.
yeah. So, hey, walk us through that assessment program. Walk us through that screening program for the 160th, because obviously there's a lot of people that that I shouldn't say a lot of people. There's people that go through it, and I'm sure there's people that make it, do well, people that don't also. So just
Yeah.
talk a little bit
Um,
about that for a second.
there's lots of stuff on the internet about it. They try to tell us, don't give away all the secrets, because it kind of ruins the experience for some people. But there are some things that are pretty much standard. Like I said, they're going to establish a whole packet of material on you. I mean, you're filling out paperwork, security questionnaires, psychological testing ad nauseum to fill out this packet. And then they're going to do there at the unit, they're going to do a packet review, and they're going to look at it, a bunch of different people, to see, hey, do we even want to offer this guy the chance at assessment? So it's can be rather lengthy process, determining who looks like on paper as a good fit for the organization. And then from there, they will offer you a chance to assess. And it has the hallmarks of many other assessments, that you got to be physically fit. You've got certain performance measures. Contrary to most of the rest of the Army, you've got to be able to swim and pass a Navy swim test.
I didn't know that.
Oh yes. That's one of the prerequisites that they're going to test there. And then the rest of the week is interviews, more psychological and intelligence testing. You're going to be given at least at this time when we were going through it, you had to prepare a presentation. Some subject, they're going to give you a subject for aviators on some aviation subject, and you get a couple of days to prepare, but really those days are full because you're also going through a night navigation ride where you're not allowed to use any electronic navigation, just map, compass, and clock. And
that's a lost skill.
It is a lost skill, but the 160th to this day still trains every pilot. There's a whole phase of green platoon, which is the training process for the 160th, that does nothing but you plan, brief, and fly every day for weeks, doing the same over and over and over again. But you're only allowed to use map, compass, and clock. No VORs, no GPS, no nothing. And that's a hallmark of 160th pilots. They're good navigators because they do the basics all the time. And when you're good at the basics, then you throw on the Doppler and GPS and VOR and INS, the inertial nav, then that's easy.
Yeah,
but you got to be able to do the hard stuff. You got to be able to do the hard stuff well. And then you'll take a check ride in the aircraft that they want you to be in. So literally, I had never been in the front seat of a Chinook in all my, I think I had 1,700 hours or something at that time in a variety of airframes, never once in a Chinook. And here I am taking a standardization check ride.
In a Chinook.
In a Chinook. And when I got done with that hour and a half period, I was like, I might as well pack my bags now. There's absolutely no way they're taking me after this pitiful ride. I didn't even know the Chinook had power steering. So you steer the Chinook on the ground with a knob, not with cyclic and pedals and everything like that. I didn't even know that. So when the check pilot said, "All right, let's taxi out," I start doing what you do in a Chinook or in a Blackhawk. You pull a little bit of power, you pull the cyclic, and he's like, "No, don't do that." So I had no idea what I was doing, but you're expected to at least know the emergency procedures and the limitations of the aircraft because it's an oral exam as well as a flight check. And I guess I did okay in the oral. You'd have to ask Beaver about that. He was the guy who gave me my check ride, but then I later flew with him, and he was actually a neighbor of mine at Fort Campbell.
Yeah.
But I made it through that week, and then it of course ends with your presentation and a question and answer session, but before a board. the question and answer session, I will say I'm putting that nicely that it's question and answer because it's probably more question and accusation than it is your ability to answer.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things. How do you handle stress?
Yeah.
And how do you fit in with the personalities in this organization? That's what they want to know. Not that you're God's gift to aviation, but that you're the kind of person they can count on, the kind of person that doesn't get rattled easily, and the kind of person who's trainable to their mission.
And you know what, Greg? Isn't it interesting? Because even in fixed wing, it was the same thing. Okay, we all heard aviate, navigate, communicate. Okay, but we've also
Absolutely.
heard clock to map to ground, clock to map to ground, clock to map to ground. Okay, and it sounds like that was just ingrained in you guys. Flying with
It
this
is.
unit,
And
it's just ingrained in you. Okay.
when you're on a training mission and you're not supporting customers, they're turning off all the navigation stuff. So it's not that you just do it in training. You do map, compass, and clock all the time because you never know whether you're going to be in an electronically denied area, but you're still expected to make it plus or minus 30 seconds to the objective. So you train at worst case scenarios all the time.
Hey, I want to go to the next question I had here. Okay. You were involved in one of the most famous battles of Afghanistan, Operation Anaconda. And uh, I want you to briefly describe for my listeners, okay? You were involved in the Battle of Roberts Ridge. You were the
Yes.
third helicopter to go up there, if I
Yes.
remember right, okay? Talk a little bit about before you even take off, what are you thinking? Because I know you don't have all the information of what's going on up there. All right.
Yes.
And just start there. Just say, hey, I'm Razor 01 and I'm getting ready to go back up to the mountain with the 75th Ranger Battalion in the back and Nate Self and his team.
So we didn't know anything. So Razor 1 and Razor 2 were the designated QRF for the operation. So we knew that was part of our mission set. We had done some ground rehearsals with Nate Self's platoon in the days prior. But QRF is one of those things, when you start racking and stacking what your missions are, that kind of falls down, even though we're the designated QRF platform. So we end up being used the night before, March 3rd. There were just too many reconnaissance teams that needed to get out there. So Razor 1 and 2, we joined in the insertions, even though we were supposed to be just on standby at Bagram for QRF. Once we finish our missions, that's kind of the part where Al-Mac and Razor 3 had some mechanical issues. So the decision was made for us to swap aircraft for them. So they took our aircraft. We took their aircraft with a maintenance test pilot, and we started flying back to Bagram. And I'm really giving you the abridged version of this. So on the way back to Bagram, we hear that there's a 160th aircraft that's been shot down. And at the same time, that there's a possibility that there's isolated service members on the battlefield. And from combat, there's fog of war. So our initial assumption was that these were one and the same. It was the same mission, just overlapping communications. The isolated person was involved with the downed aircraft and vice versa. So we go back, long story short, flight lead and the air mission commander, they go in, they get the mission. The rest of us, the crew and the co-pilots, we're prepping the aircraft. We're getting the QRF on board, dividing them up, going over the mission, making sure communications, and then we launch going to Gardes, not exactly knowing where we're going to go. It stays kind of chaotic communication wise, variety of of locations are passed to us where the aircraft is down, where the isolated person is. And finally, it's just narrowed down to a mountaintop. And, that's where we're going. And that's where we went, not knowing that two aircraft had already been up there and gotten shot up. Again, to that fog of war, poor communications, uh, poor, let's just say, message management in the retransmission platforms that were above us. They've got stacks of messages that they're handling on board, and not all of them are making it down to the people on the ground that need to hear those messages. So we proceed inbound, and if anybody had listened to lessons from the cockpit last time, that's at that 50, 60-foot hover as we're making our approach, the world just goes to hell. Right engine is shot out, the windscreens are shot out, crew members are wounded almost immediately. Probably the only reason I was on the controls at the time. Well, both pilots were on the controls. That's normally standard on a hot LZ. But making the approach to landing, probably the only reason I was unscathed until after landing was Phil Svitak firing his minigun out the right door. He kept up with the pressure on that side of the aircraft, that even though bullets were going through the cockpit, how I wasn't hit, that my body armor took 9 hits at some point during that approach. The helmet took a couple of hits. But for the grace of God, able to complete the approach and get the aircraft on the ground. And then that began 14 hours of, you can't even explain the heroics of the Rangers, the things that they were doing to suppress the enemy, to save our lives, to provide medical care. These are guys, if anybody's not familiar with Ranger training, Rangers probably get the least amount of press of any of the special ops ground guys, but they are absolutely the most professional, precise, lethal, and the people. If you're going to get into a brawl, you want Rangers around you, and thank God we had Rangers around us that day to, again, suppress the enemy, protect all of us, get us through that 14 hours with Nate Self and his boys. That 14 hours until we could be rescued by some of the same crews who were initially, especially Razor 04, initially engaged at the beginning of that day. And here they are, still flying all day long. Jason and his crew on Razor 04, they'd been put through the ringer with all their insertions that they were doing. They picked up the downed crew from Razor 03 and protected them. And then they ended their day by coming back up to the mountain again to pull us off the mountain. So, lots of great people, and I appreciate Jason and his crew for coming back to get us, and all the air crews that did.
And you know what? Razor 04 story is one that you'd never hear about, isn't it?
You never hear about it. And it's probably, if you really get down in the weeds, and I don't know how much of it is unclassified now, but Razor 04 were the unsung heroes of that day because of everything that they did, from the initial insertions to the in extremis mission of bringing Mako 30 back to the mountaintop. And then, their day just kept on going through that 14 hours we were up there until they finally came back as part of the package that came back up to get them. The Razor 04 story, just like Razor 03 at Outback, the Razor 04 story could be its own book in and of itself.
Oh, it could be its own movie. Okay. Because, when you look at the Predator video, all right, of Mako 30 getting inserted back on the mountain, okay, and they're getting hammered, all right,
Hammered.
hammered, all right, from like 5 directions, all right, and you're surprised, me knowing what happened, you're surprised that they even made it off the mountain. And
Yes.
then in that same video, a little while later, you're coming up, and you can see parts of your right engine literally flying through the air, you know.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Kroos and Anderson going out the back getting cut down too, you know.
Yes.
And
Crows Anderson and Matt Commons.
yeah,
Uh, Unfortunately, one of I think it was Mark Anderson who said to Nate Self, um, "Today I feel like a Ranger." Before they did the infill,
oh man,
and then none of those guys hesitating when the ramp went down. There they went. There
yeah.
was no hesitation, and thank God they're as lethal and good at their craft as they are. Um, Otherwise, I may not have made it off that day. I love Rangers. I'll love Rangers till the day I die, and um, great warriors.
At what point did you get shot through the hand, through the wrist? Because you don't
So
come out of this unscathed either.
so it was right after landing. Um, Chuck had pulled off the power levers. The blades were starting to spin, but the aircraft was still kind of wobbly. So I was still holding on to the controls to force the aircraft into a slope. When you're landing on a slope with a helicopter, you kind of have to force the weight into the slope to keep it stable. So I was still doing that till the blade stopped. And I had just been consistently getting peppered with fire from the right front. Um, and as soon as the blades were stopped enough that I could probably or maybe do something about it. I don't know how effective I was, but I picked up my M4 off the floor, started engaging through the window. I reached up to kick out the emergency exit on the Chinook. And then when I came back down to put my hand back on my stock again, I missed. And that's when I noticed that my hand was kind of like dangling below me. And it's like, that was kind of a shock. Um, so that time I've decided I need to get out of the cockpit now. I threw on as good a tourniquet on myself as I could. Um, Probably did a poor job at that too because the medic eventually the medic reapplied a new tourniquet. Um, as I was trying to get out of the cockpit on my belly, I got stuck on my survival gear. And you can see in the video where an RPG goes under
Yeah.
the
Oh
aircraft.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It goes right on the top of it.
Yeah, so there was one that went under the aircraft. That one goes off, and that gets both of my legs. So now I can't even kick myself out of the cockpit. And again, thank God to Corey, the medic on board. He was able to grab me and pull me back into the cabin. So outside of being able to watch or use the survival radios, I was kind of out of the fight from then on.
I forgot about your legs. I forgot that your legs were injured too.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just had a matter of fact, I just had an X-ray for my knees. Um, I was having some problem with my knees. And they were, what are all those? There's a bunch of metal spots behind your knee there. Said, yeah, I got some metal left over
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I have a
Still to
hard
this
time getting
day.
through the airport security still. Sorry. See, and this battle just rages around you. You know,
It rages.
there's F-15Es that are coming in. There's Tomcats that are coming in. Hornets are coming in. Two F-16s coming in. Twister 5-1 and
Predators.
5-2. Huh? Oh yeah, I forgot about the Predator too.
Predators.
Because they're dropping missiles in on top of this. Okay, I mean, we're literally going after the top of this mountain hard. All right.
Yeah, doctrinally, and I was a TAC ops guy. I was a personnel recovery guy. Everything happened like it's supposed to happen. The world around that area stops, and the air planners just start stacking assets. And thank God they did, because they were able to keep pressure on. Um, you got Rangers who are just an amazing amount of firepower for such a small organization from below, and
Yeah.
we have the air power above us. That's helping the fight. And you were talking about the Twisters aircraft. It was a funny thing. I happened to come here to Virginia Tech, and the Spliff is giving his briefing on the
Spliff
Battle of
Russell. Yeah.
Takagar. I was invited to go. The person who invited me thought we knew each other. We didn't know each other. We occupied the same battle space, but we never knew each other before. And I sat through the briefing and then went up and introduced myself afterwards, and it was quite a moving reunion
Oh, yeah.
of
Oh,
sorts.
yeah. Okay.
But it was very cool for me because I had never been really debriefed on the Air Force side of the mission. So it was a great learning experience for me to understand how that piece evolved, and literally how I don't want to say this in a negative way because they did a phenomenal job, but those guys don't train on air to ground tactics like an A-10 driver does. So here they are with a 20 millimeter cannon, I believe,
Yeah.
that has a up cant
Yep.
for
2 degrees.
dogfighting,
2 degrees. 2 degrees up
and
camp.
now they're trying to put precision, danger close fire on a speck on top of a mountaintop. And damn if they didn't do it. So
And
that's
Panzer
awesome.
and Spliff had never done it before. Okay.
Never done
Panzer and
that.
Spliff and Twister 5.2 had never done it before. But Twister 5.1 was junior short and he had come from A10s.
Yep.
All right. He had come from A10s. All right. Now, my perspective on this, okay, because I'm watching this at the Combined Air and Space Operations Center
Yes.
in Prince Sultan, okay?
Yeah, you're at
And
the
we have,
KOC.
yeah, I'm at the KOC, and we're watching this on a 40-foot screen. We're watching the Predator video, okay, on a 40-foot screen, and we're watching all of this, all right? And I'll never forget the sound that went across the KOC floor when you guys got shot down. It was, oh, everybody, I mean, everybody on the floor went, oh, because they could see parts of your engine flying through the air. And then they saw people trying to get off the back that didn't make it. All right.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, I had a great crew. I was in charge of all the refueling for Anaconda, and we had air refueling areas literally 5 minutes away. 5 minutes flying time south. So they were cycling off on and off the tankers, to keep, so that gas was never going to be an issue. All right. But I'll never forget this, Greg. I came in that morning and I remember Moose Lakaitis, who was a director on the floor, saying, "We're in deep dog squeeze right now, Sluggo." And I go, "What's the matter?" He goes, "We got a helicopter and a crew stuck on a mountain under Al Qaeda fire." And I says, "Moose, I've got like 800,000 pounds up over the top of that place right now." And he goes, "That
Thank
may not be
God.
enough." He said, "That
Oh,
may not be enough." And I said, "You tell me when you need it. But I need about a 2 hour head start. Okay. I need a 2 hour notice and we'll launch tankers from Al Udeid down there, but it's going to take them 2 hours to get there." Okay. And in fact, we did do
yeah.
that. All right. In fact, we did do that. But there was a KC-10 that was overhead that day, and I think it flew a 15.1 hour mission. I think we refueled
Oh,
it twice. I think we dumped gas
wow.
into it like twice. Okay. All right. And it was one of those things where we just, like you said, our whole focus was on Tacker Garmount, right? A lot of things stopped because I tell everybody this when I speak, we will not leave anybody behind. And we didn't.
Yeah, that is that is the creed, the mantra that we all have. Even when we were up on that mountain, we knew in our hearts of hearts that everybody was doing everything they could to either get to us or support us. Um, and you talk about that, you know, do whatever it takes. And with this, and I'm not going to jump ahead, but I just gotta say this: with this Venezuela mission, you know, we saw the sexiest parts of the operation, or some of them, and then led to believe. But people don't realize the amount of preparation and the number of assets and people that go into an operation like this, whether it's intelligence people, logisticians, maintainers. You have to have refueling capability. You have to have electronic warfare capability. You have to have suppression of enemy air defense. You have to have assets, as we used to say, stacked up to heaven to get those short video clips of the guys on the ground being successful. It is a huge joint effort that people don't get to see. So when we say how successful the fighters were over Talker Gar and how successful they were at at least keeping people's heads down, if not schwacking a whole bunch of them that wanted to overrun us, they don't realize that there's still somebody has to get gas to those fighter planes. Some E3, E4 back in an air base is busting their ass to put bombs and ammo inside of a plane. There's communicators that are making sure that the right information is going to the right people. So we all see the sexy part or the quick clips, the sound bites of these operations. But what we don't see is this joint effort that has to be there, or the mission has to be there, or the mission's not going to be successful to the guys that are really at the tip of the spear, punching down a door and going to get the bad guys.
Here's the other thing I forgot about too. The A-10s were on their way down that same day. Okay. And I think they showed up like in the afternoon. Scott Campbell, Soup Campbell, for the audience, he wins 3 DFCs in 4 days.
Wow.
I've got those. I'll send them to you. For the first one, it talks about this, about how he kind of shows up late in the afternoon and is working Tacker Gar. You know, everything's kind of calmed down, but there's a lot of stuff going on. All right. And again,
I tell you,
he's on his way down. It's a 5-hour trip, and they're going into the target area literally with Russian maps because they didn't have anything
that's
else.
how we started the war. We were using Russian maps because there were no US maps available. Literally, I still have some of those maps, and I can't read a damn thing on them, but at least I can read the terrain.
Yeah, exactly.
But none of the words, all the words are in Cyrillic, and
yeah.
that's what we were operating off of in the early days of the war.
Yeah.
Going back to the A-10s, I have to put this plug in. I think the Air Force is making a huge mistake getting rid of the A-10s. If you're an Army guy, especially an Army aviator or an Army infantryman, there is nothing more welcome on the battlefield than the whine of an A-10 coming down to knife fight with you, and then the sound of that
gun,
Gatling gun. There is no sound in the world that makes you feel more safe than the sound of that gun. I don't see it ever being obsolete. As we've proven in this Venezuela mission, there's still a place for helicopters. There's still a place for that individual soldier that has to kick down a door. It's not all about drones and electronics and unmanned aircraft, as some people like to think. Somebody still has to do the fighting. And as far as a far as an Army ground guy is concerned, we need the A-10 to fulfill that knife fighting mission with us.
I could not agree with you more. I think it's a big mistake that we are getting rid of that airplane. Okay. I realize it's old. I realize it takes a lot of maintenance, and they're taking wings off of A-10s
Hey,
in
there's a lot
London.
of us are old, but we can
Yeah,
still do our
exactly.
jobs.
Look at my airplane for crying out loud. Okay.
Yeah.
Eisenhower signed the check for crying out loud. Okay.
The Chinook is now over 50 years old.
Exactly.
It still is a viable weapon system. Same thing with the A-10.
Yeah.
Absolutely necessary on a battlefield.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm glad that some people in Congress said, wait a minute. Let's take another close look at this. Yeah, timeout,
I'm out.
timeout, timeout. Okay. Because again, that airplane was built to do that kind of mission and it does it very well. All right. And I'm sorry, F-35 is not a close air support platform.
No, great aircraft, great
Exactly.
Americans flying them, but
Exactly.
it's not a close air support
No,
platform.
it's not. Okay. When you have an airplane that you can literally load across 10 hard points, has precision capability, has a targeting pod, all those kinds of things, that airplane should be around another 20 years. And I would tell the Air Force and whoever can build it, we need to make more of these things newer, stronger, lighter, faster, however you want it. It's not going to be fast, but again, that airplane, all of my Army buds, Greg, tell me the same thing. Okay. Never, ever get rid of that airplane. All right. Because like you said, once we hear that gun overhead and once our enemies hear that gun overhead, everything stops. The enemy
Yep.
stops because they know they're about to get made into, as my F-15 bros would say, teeth, hair, and eyeballs. Okay.
Yeah. And not to be gross, but just a spray splat on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, great transition into, let's talk about Venezuela, man. Okay. You were a tactics officer there and a very successful one. All right. And you've talked a little bit about it, but there's a lot of video of that conga line of MH-60s and MH-47s going to Maduro's residence to pick him up. Okay. Just at a high level, walk the listeners through. You're the 160th planner for this. What are you thinking? What are you doing to help make this job easy for the guys that are actually going to fly the mission?
So once again, just as we were talking about the joint pod, it is a huge effort to put this together. So when the commander gets an order to make this mission happen, he's going to find his air mission commander, and then they're going to designate the flight leads depending upon how many airframes are going to be involved in this operation. So in this case, there's going to be a Black Hawk flight lead and a Chinook flight lead. From there, they start the initial breakdown of whatever the order from the National Command Authority is. And then they start farming out those pieces to their planning cells. And those planning cells, the individual air crews that are occupying those aircraft, they each get a piece and a part of that mission to plan. And then it will all come together at the end to brief back to the commander, brief back to the customers and the ground force, and ultimately on a national command authority mission like that, the plan is going to go all the way up. The air mission commander, who's usually a company or battalion commander at this point, is going to be doing the primary joint and external liaison to make sure all those Navy, Air Force refueling, electronic warfare, intel pieces that we need from the outside are coordinated. And then the flight lead is going to handle the internal coordination with the other airframes and with the customers and start that interaction with them. Now, the TAC Ops officer, or what they now call as the Aviation Mission Survivability Officer, he's going to be looking at the overall plan and everybody's plan from a crew and platform survivability perspective. That's his. So he's going to be looking at the route and comparing it with intelligence and looking for intervisibility with terrain, finding out where they can be less visible or acoustic signatures are going to be mitigated as you go across the mission. Looking at the intelligence, aircraft survivability equipment, countermeasure settings, and any SEER aspects, because the AMSO is also a PR guy. So he's going to be looking at any of the SEER necessities for the crews, just in case
stuff,
things, personnel recovery stuff, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, just in case things go sideways.
And see, people don't understand. You've got your helicopters that are moving at a certain speed, and you've got E-18 growlers above you that are jamming and doing their thing, and also F-35s and F-22s. I'll tell you something interesting. I was watching or was scrolling through Twitter X, all right, and a thing popped up that says, "Hey, a bunch of tankers are moving right now," and I knew exactly what that meant. All right, and I went and I told my wife, who is asleep. I woke her up and I said, "Something's happening tonight in Venezuela. There's going to be big news in the morning." All right, and you know what, Greg? I couldn't get to sleep because
yeah,
you're flying the missions again, even though
I
I've left it
couldn't
years
either.
ago. Okay, I've left it years ago. You're still flying the
But you know,
missions.
it never really leaves you, does it?
No, it doesn't. It
It
never
doesn't
leaves you.
leave me.
Good, good,
No.
good. I am not crazy. I am not crazy. Good. Okay. Good. Because I know other
It
people
doesn't
don't.
leave you. It's too much ingrained in what we do. So
Exactly.
even though we're not wiggling sticks anymore, we're still staying tuned. We're still staying
Yeah.
educated. Um, and there's certain things, this from an unclassified level, lessons that I can pass to
Yeah.
our future aviators in our Virginia Tech ROTC
Yeah.
program.
What you're doing
So
now.
there's a lot of goodness that can come from that. But you're right. It doesn't leave us, and we stay a part of it.
Yeah, we do. So I'll give you a scenario real quick. Okay. You're that lead, flight lead in the MH-47. All right. You're the helicopter that's going to like hover over the top of the house and have guys fast rope, down into the place. All right. You're very vulnerable at that point, aren't you? Just talk a
Yes.
little bit about what that's like. Okay.
Well, going into something like that, you almost have to step back and address fear. And I like to always do that because you've got to be able to control your emotions when you're in those kind of situations. Um, and those guys are doing that through what, there was an Army Ranger and psychologist named Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, and he coined a phrase, stress inoculation. These guys have been doing it for years. Hard, realistic, demanding training in all the environments that are in our national security portfolio. So these guys are prepared across the whole spectrum. So before you get to that place where now I'm hanging the ramp over a rooftop, you've got to be able to control the emotion and stay light on the controls instead of having a death grip on them. And you have to trust. The Chinook is an interesting aircraft because it's unique amongst helicopters where you cannot fly it by yourself as a pilot. In the Chinook, it's so big that you rely on your enlisted crew members in the back of the aircraft to talk to you, and you're flying by their words. And if they're really amped up and talking really fast and they haven't got control of their emotions, it translates into the way that you're flying, that you're hovering at that very precise piece of the sky. If they're controlled and smooth, just like I know those guys were on that mission when when the aircraft comes over, the pilot doesn't know where the ramp is. He only knows what the crew chief is telling him to guide that aircraft, that 75 feet of aircraft, to put the ramp exactly where the customer and the crew chief needs it. And then he's listening for the ropes call, that they're dropping the ropes. And then the crew chief is communicating as each person gets out, last man on the rope, ropes are cut, aft ready, forward ready, and then the aircraft can move. The pilot is getting all that information from other people in the back of the aircraft. All he's doing is hovering according to what they say. And it is really a choreographed that these guys work on for years to get to that level of capability. But the pilot isn't the pilot, yes, he's flying the mission. He's hovering at that point over the rooftop or wherever it may be. But the only way he got to that precision of where the exact ropes need to be so the customer gets off the rope and is immediately where he wants to be is because of those enlisted crew members on in the back who knows exactly what they're supposed to do. And the way they talk controls your fear and your stress up front. So it's a very symbiotic relationship within a Chinook to make this stuff happen.
What a great point that is about teamwork. You know that?
Oh, you a Chinook. We say that a Chinook flies by committee, and it sort of does. You have to have a good teamwork, and that's why when they picked this mission, every air crew is ready for the whole portfolio of national security missions. So the picking of the crews may have just been, or picking of the unit to do this, which one of the units may have just been timing. Like who's up?
Yeah.
Who's in the on deck circle right now? But every one of the organizations, the various units within the 160th are ready to go all the time. But when they pick this mission, they're going to be very deliberate about the crew mix, making sure the right two pilots up front and making sure the right 4 to 5 to 6 crew members are in the back of the Chinook so that they know they have good experience across the board and that particular team or that particular piece of the mission is already well choreographed and they know they can depend upon them to do whatever they need to do with no supervision whatsoever. So that crew mix, we talk about that a lot in Army aviation, making sure the right people are together for the right mission. And in the Chinook community, it's absolutely a teamwork exercise.
Yeah, we've got the kind of the same thing going in the Air Force, all right? And guys and gals that lead the missions on the opening night are usually the patch wearers, the weapons school grads, the Top Gun grads, the grads of your school, okay, your tactics, and planning school, okay. Um, you always send your best shooters into the worst fight, is what I remember a gentleman tell me, a general tell me. Your best shooters are always saved for the worst fight, all right? And yeah, this could have become the worst fight, but it didn't, all right? And it took a lot of coordination for, like I said, F-35s, Growlers, F-18s, tankers, everything meeting in some place to cover you guys. And I tell everybody this, and everybody goes, "Oh, yeah, right." I said, the Air Force is there to help defend the guys and gals on the ground, the guys and the gals that are going to be on the ground, the guys and gals that are flying the helos like you're flying, okay? So that they never have to worry about those F-16s and those Su-30s in the Venezuelan Air Force, okay? Because if they take off, Shark Garland had a great quote one day. He got up in front of everybody in this big briefing in front of all the generals, okay? He's an F-15 guy. This is what he said. We're going to cap here at the end of the runways. Anybody that takes off is going to be toast. We got a clear field of fire. Any questions? That was literally all he said. Okay.
That was the mission brief.
That was the mission brief. Yeah. Okay. We're going to cap off the end of the Al Assad runways. Anybody that takes off is toast. We got a clear field of fire across Baghdad. Questions? And again, he was a patchware too. He's a weapons school guy. All right.
But you know, he covered the 5 W's. And most commanders will tell you, if I have a group of warfighters who understand my intent and understand the mission statement, then the 150 other pages that are part of this operations order are not meaningless. But as long as they understand my intent, understand the mission, and I got good people that I don't have to micromanage, they're going to do what needs to be done. And all you need is a brief like that. That's like, what? It was much more difficult than just doing that, because a lot of assets have to be involved. Again, intelligence, refueling, the right people in the right place, and they're going to do that in the 160th as well. Yes, everybody is qualified to do that mission, but when the order came down, they're really going to go, who are my key air mission commanders and who are my key flight leads that I really trust that if there's no more communications, those guys are going to make the right decisions to execute the mission.
Every time.
That's what they're looking for there.
So how is an MH-47 armed? What are your defenses on the helicopter when you're going in to do this? Okay, because obviously you've got, you've talked about gunners and countermeasures and all those kind of things. Talk to people a little bit about, this is kind of what we have on our helicopter. All right.
So the MH-47 is outfitted with 2 M134 miniguns that fire a 7.62 round, 4,000 to 6,000 rounds a minute. Pretty heavy firepower. And then in the back, they'll have 2 M240 machine guns coming out of both sides. Pretty much for defensive purposes only. But again, the enlisting crew members that are in the 160th, they become masters of those weapons. So when you talk to a weapons guy, they'll talk about those kind of weapons are a area target weapon only. But those guys have to be so precise, because when they get to the X, they have to understand the rules of engagement, because the rules of engagement change or can change throughout the conduct of a mission. They have to understand, especially as tight as in an urban environment, they have to understand their fields of fire so they can maximize their firepower while still protecting civilian infrastructure, protecting the customers, and protecting other air assets that might be around. So it's not the question of just throwing an enlisted guy on a gun. These guys plan, train just as much as anybody else to be the masters of those weapons and be able to be precise with them to protect the aircraft and crew. Now, DAPs, on the other hand, are a more offensive type weapon system. And I probably couldn't even name all the different armament that you can strap on to the modern MH-60 helicopter. Phenomenal piece of equipment. And those guys, again, are absolutely surgical in their execution of their mission. So now you have 2 platforms with an awful lot of armament, with kind of 2 separate missions, but in a very small piece of airspace together. That's where the communications, or even the lack of communications, comes in, because we're going to have pre-planned pro words and phrases that drive a specific action. So we don't have to be on the radio all the time. We don't have to be talking to each other all the time. So if there is a need for us to talk a lot, the airwaves are clear. So these guys they have planned this, they've briefed it, they've rehearsed it. they've debriefed it ad nauseum prior to this point, because we knew we had some time here to do the preparation. So by the time these guys get to the X, they've done this or done portions of this mission so many times that they can't get it wrong. So there's absolute precision in everything they've done up to this point. And that's kind of what is going on the objective. It's a ballet with very little communications, but everybody knows their piece. Everybody knows exactly. It's not like a big Army air assault where you have a bunch of aircraft just going to the field. Every aircraft is going to hit its release point. They're going to go to, one time there was a mission in Afghanistan. My job was to put the ramp right on the sidewalk inside of a compound so the customers could just come off the ramp, turn right, and go right in the door. That's the level of precision that these guys are planning to make sure that the customers are successful.
That's amazing, man. It's a lot of people in the United States, a lot of people watching this thing go down. All right. Yeah, it's extremely successful. All right. But they, like you said, do not understand the absolute planning and rehearsal that probably went through this. Okay.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this before they even went feet wet.
Oh yeah. Okay. And particularly the rehearsal piece. All right. Because, you guys train with SEAL Team 6, you train with Delta Force, you train with a lot of folks in the 160th. Okay. You are truly a joint asset when it comes to getting people in and out and doing it pretty stealthily. All right. And so I'm sure you've had a lot of very interesting folks in the back of your helicopter on numerous occasions. Okay. And
interesting folks and interesting cargo.
yeah, I was going to say too, interesting cargo too. Okay. You know, like you turn around the seat and go, well, I've never seen that before in the back of my helicopter, but here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
It doesn't matter. When you look at the exfil from this operation, not to jump a whole bunch of things, but it kind of fits in. We have to not only do. Sometimes the hardest part is not getting into an objective. Sometimes the hardest part is getting out of an objective, because now you've stirred up the hornet's nest, and now you're dealing with people or a personality that you have to get out of there that nobody knows real well. And as with all of us, when something bad happens, we don't really know how we're going to react to it. So we don't know how Maduro was going to react to this. So there has to be a plan and contingencies for getting that guy out of bed and getting him securely and safely into the aircraft. And while that is transparent to the aircrew, we trust that the customers are going to do what they do. We know, we've seen them rehearse something down to where are we going to sit this guy in the aircraft, and how are we going to secure them safely, and how are we going to clear them to make sure they're safe to get on the aircraft. There's a whole process, rehearsals, planning that goes into just that. And so it's kind of transparent to the aircrew. It's just another exfiltration for us. We might have a different pro word or phrase that we have to say on the radio once that person is on board. Yeah. But other than that, it's just, I hate to say just another exfiltration, but it's just getting the customer back on the aircraft. And now we've got to think about getting out, getting back to base, because nobody is going to take a knee. Nobody's going to breathe a sigh of relief until those aircraft are parked and everybody is out of the engagement area. Because I know the 160th guys probably also had a secondary mission if things were to go sideways with any of the Air Force or Navy assets, they were going to have a contingency mission to go back in and get those guys. Guaranteed. That was one of the contingencies planned, briefed, and rehearsed.
And see, that was one of the questions I remember sending to you too, is, what happens if this goes sideways, and we don't leave anybody behind, all right? And
Right.
we will come down there with a whole lot of assets to go in there. And, there was a potential that we could have really, really messed up Venezuela if things had gone sideways, okay? I mean, there's
I had a
B-1s coming out of Dyess Air Force Base, for crying out loud, okay? A 3-ship of B-1s, and they hold 24 precision weapons if they're big weapons, okay? The smaller ones, I think it's like 85 or something like that, 500-pound JDAMs, I mean, it's a lot.
Yep.
There was a potential if things had gone sideways, we really made a mess down there, okay? But,
Yeah. Well, I had a boss once, and we used to laugh at him when he first said this, company commander of the 160th, but he used to say, we have to train to be shot down. And we would laugh about that. But I will tell you, you do that enough, just like every other mission. We, or the 160th, plans for shit to go wrong.
yeah,
And that's probably another thing that makes them very successful, is that they know what to do when they go wrong, from the air mission commander all the way down to the specialist manning one of those machine guns. Everybody knows their part when things go right and when things go wrong. So I can speak from experience from Tucker Gar. Thank God he still does this idea of training to be shot down, training when the things are at their worst.
yeah, the worst case
Because
scenario.
something simple, like I didn't even think about reaching for my tourniquet. I knew exactly where it was. I knew exactly how it was folded, and I knew exactly how to employ it at that time. If you don't train for even those little details like that, that can be the difference between life and death when stakes are high and emotions are running high. So when you train on all those little details, on how to stay alive, how to engage the enemy, you're good at it. So you're ready for when things are good and when things are bad. And the same thing, they would have planned for contingency for any of those Air Force or Navy assets to go down in the engagement area. Guaranteed you there was going to be aircraft, helicopters going that way, to make sure those people got out.
Yeah. Hey, there's been a lot of ship takedowns lately, okay? And I know you've done a few of those, okay? And I know things I know there's a lot of stuff that's similar, between a land versus a ocean-borne or seaborne type of infill,
Yeah.
okay? But just describe kind of, what these ship takedowns, um, how you plan those and execute those. And again, I know there's a lot of similarities, but again, you're out over the middle of the ocean on a ship that is moving, you know, however 10 knots, 15 knots. It's a completely different target set.
It is, but as you alluded to, it's not as well. Um, Literally, a ship takedown is like operating to a small island. It's got the same terminal hazards, both physical and threat wise. Um, Antennas instead of trees, cables instead of vines or power lines. It's very similar. It's just that this island might happen to just be moving now. So a lot of planning does go into these, especially the contingency planning you talked about, because we're probably operating over vast areas of ocean, um, where there's not a suitable landing area for a forced landing. Um, your fuel usage has to be monitored exactly, because you have to know how much time you can be there before you actually have to be out or hit a tanker or get back on the boat. and you just can't land. And it, as well as they say the Chinook floats, and I really don't want to test that. Um, I really don't want to land an aircraft in the middle of the ocean. So a lot of times, missions for underway takedowns like this spend a lot of time in contingency planning, fuel, maintenance, um, having maybe two or three options for recovery versus a land-based mission where you know you're going to go back to your base. Well, there might be a couple of different options out there for recovery to another waterborne craft. So doing a ship is a lot like going to any X. But you're probably not going to be able to land just like an urban environment. So again, we're planning exactly for where the ropes are going to be, and not just in an area. I mean, the crews are literally looking for 3 and 4 foot spots. Just like in the old days, we used to train. Our company commander would train us to do a 4-hour mission and then put one of the aft gear on a piece of plywood, plus or minus 30 seconds.
Really?
And that was one of our training scenarios. Well, these guys on this mission, they're going to look at that level of detail exactly within inches where the ropes need to be, where the customers need to be. How are they going to be oriented to protect the customers going onto the ship? And oh, by the way, it might still be moving. We might be able to this. So now you've got to be able to compensate and know how you're going to orient the aircraft with the relative wind coming across the ship. So while it is very similar to flying into an urban objective, like you said, there's definitely some dissimilarities and some contingencies that we have to plan for.
Yeah, and some of these helo guys make it look so easy, you know. And I know, hovering over the foredeck of some ship that's moving, you're sideways, you're like 90 degrees to the ship's movement. All right. That takes some skill to do that. Okay. And I just thought of a question while
Or
you
it
were talking.
takes, in the Chinook, it takes good crew members doing the right call
Got
outs
it. Yeah.
to me, because there's a lot of times I, as the pilot, the nose is out over the water. I can't see the boat. I can't see what the customers are doing. I can't see
I
anything.
didn't even
So
think of
I'm
that.
reliant completely on what the non-rated crew members in the back are telling me, and going by their pace and going by the things that they say, and trying to translate their voice into very, very precise control movements. So again, it Shipboard goes back to this. When you're talking to Chinook, it goes back to very, very much a teamwork kind of effort.
I thought of a question while you were talking. Have you ever landed on like the back of like a Aegis cruiser or destroyer? Is that enough room for a Chinook to set down? Because there's not a lot of room back there.
No, we can't do a single spotter on a
Okay.
Navy ship. It takes a two spotter, like on amphibious landing craft
Yeah,
or a
the Iwo Jima or a
logistics
carrier or
a,
something like that.
or a logistics boat that has two spots in the back.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's actually going to put wheels
Yeah.
on a Navy ship, is a two spotter for a
Okay.
Chinook.
Yeah. Because I when I think of 75 feet long, you know, it, you think that's a big helicopter. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have blades front and back, which basically extends the helicopter's footprint beyond it. All right.
Yes.
Um, and refueling in that helicopter must be very fascinating because, um, like behind us, the MC-130, your refueling probe, does it extend out beyond the rotor? It does not.
Nope. So you actually follow the curve of a drogue basket,
Mm.
and you're putting the blades just over the basket to make the contact between the hose and the aircraft. So that's actually a little bit of overlap. Now, the Blackhawks, they have an extendable,
Okay.
they have a motorized extendable refueling probe just because there is no space
Yeah.
between their rotor system.
Yeah.
They need to have that probe out there a little bit farther. But in the Chinook, it's a solid probe, and you just have to fly over it.
Uh, and Greg, and coming from the air refueling community, flying at night on NVGs, coming up to an MC 130, that's got to be tricky. Okay. Because,
Actually, I liked. I won't. I won't claim to ever be the greatest uh, refueling pilot in the world, but I thought it was pretty decent enough at the time. I actually preferred under night vision goggles. In
really,
the daylight, you've got too much going on. There's all kinds of cues that you can micro focus on, which causes you to over control the aircraft. But when you limit your cues to what you can see through your two toilet paper tubes and to the light gun signals or the pieces of the aircraft that you're trying to put in the right position on your windscreen to plug that hose, I and I know a lot of guys are like this, actually find it easier to do this under goggles because you're not fighting that urge to react to everything that you see. If you limit what you can see, then you don't over control to match all those little tiny movements.
you know what?
That's just me.
And you know what, Greg? I totally agree with you because you know what? My best landings in the KC-135 were all at night. They were at night. Because like you said, you don't have all this stuff in your periphery that you're focusing on, okay? You're just focusing on the VASI lights, aim point airspeed, and getting it down. And all this other stuff is all blacked out. You don't see it, okay?
That's the way refueling is for a helicopter. You're not focused on that hose and those what we call turkey feathers, but the drogue chute. You're not focused on that. Otherwise, it's like playing whack-a-mole. What you're doing is focusing on the speed of the aircraft. You're getting call outs from the other pilot on your speed. So you're matching the speeds. And you're looking for very precise against the airframe of the C-130. Once you have those satisfied, all those cues, then really you can almost just nudge that cyclic a little bit forward, plug the hose, just from the sight picture of keeping the aircraft in the right position with the C-130. And then you just have to glance down real quick as you plug. You fly up into the refuel position to keep it plugged. You get your gas, and then you disconnect.
Thought of another question I want to ask you.
Sure.
How did you recover from getting your hand shot off? Talk us, because I remember you talking about this, and it's an amazing story, okay? That what you had to go through when you said, I'm going to focus on getting back in the cockpit. Tell my listeners, this is how it went down. Here's what happened. Because this is an amazing story.
Being evac'd off the battlefield, I was brought in on the C-130 that was supposed to take us back to Bagram as a Kazakh casualty evacuation platform broke. So I actually went back on a British Chinook with an Army medical team on the back of it. And I was thinking that looking at my hand or bundled up and packaged up, that I'm going to lose that hand. So I get back to Bagram. And again, I'll try to make the long story short. So I am so lucky in so many ways. And that's what I always have to concentrate on. So I'm getting ready to go into surgery in the basement of the air traffic control tower. There's some great pictures of that because it looks like any unfinished basement. And now you throw in a surgical suite in it with unpainted walls and dirt floor and everything. Kind of surreal. But this guy I had never seen before walks up And before they take me in surgery to do an initial debridement, close me up, get me ready for transport, the guy introduces himself as Dr. George Peoples. I am the head of orthopedic surgery at Walter Reed Army Medical
Oh
Center.
my
Colonel,
gosh.
the guy was
Oh,
visiting on a staff visit, and he's the head of orthopedic surgery for the United States Army. And he told me this because I thought I was already done for. He said, "You're going to go through several stops before you get to Walter Reed. Do not let them take off your hand. I think I know a guy at Walter Reed who might be able to help." And after that, the I forget the guy's name, but the anesthesiologist, he wrote a note for me because he's getting ready to plug me with gas and put me down. So I had that note. But sure enough, in Turkey, at Landstuhl in Germany, the doctor said, "Hey, there's too much of a risk of gangrene infection. We got to take this off." Nope. I don't know how many forms I signed refusing treatment on my way back.
yeah.
But about 6 days later, 7 days later, I think, I make it back to Walter Reed. And they get us on the bus from Andrews Air Force Base into Walter Reed. And this really young, what I think looks like a really young guy to be working on me, he says, he's taking a look at me, taking a look and stuff. He said, "Hey, a guy named Colonel Peoples gave me a call. My name's Gerald Farber. Didn't look like a lieutenant colonel, but he was a lieutenant colonel at the time. And he said, not going to promise you anything, but glad you kept that hand. Let's see what we can work with." And about 18 months later, multiple surgeries, uh, a fantastic occupational therapist named Lisa Smur, um, who got me my fine motor skill back, really unique ways. Even went to a Chinook simulator up at a guard base up in Pennsylvania with me to find out, what do Chinook guys need to do? What do they need to do with their fingers? So she could understand how to get me to where I wanted to be. So this incredible, I couldn't tell you how many, couldn't regurgitate all the names of the people that intervened on my behalf along this path. But it all started with just
Colonel
being
Peoples.
lucky enough, the head of orthopedics for the whole Army just happened to be in Bagram at the time and told me, "Hey, it's okay. We're going to try to fix you." And sure enough, they did. About 18 months. I had some more problems later on, had to go back. But they gave me about 5 years. They said I'd probably be able to use my hand for about 5 years. I might have start having some problems. So knock on wood, but here 20 something years later, I'm still flying and my hand is still functioning. So pretty amazing people. I am very, very lucky and fortunate, more than skillful most of my life. And this is another one of those factors. Being in the right place with the right people at the right time is why I'm here today.
Brother, God's looking out for you, man.
Oh, hell yeah.
I member of the LDS church. I'm very religious. Okay. And, I recognize the hand of God in these kinds of things. All right. And, I
Absolutely.
mean, I don't believe in coincidences anymore, particularly after Jeffrey's illness. I do not believe in coincidences anymore. I believe that things are arranged by God, and having Colonel Peoples in the basement of the tower when you come in, and that's not a coincidence.
Pretty amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
there there really isn't. I think God gives us blessings and skill sets. We can listen to him and utilize those blessings and skill sets, or we can ignore them and suffer to our own devices. And so I'm very much a believer that God has very much a hand in everything that we do. We just need to listen and pay attention and do the right things for and by other people around us and for ourselves. And the best is going to happen in the end. It's when we ignore those blessings and ignore those people that God has put around us, that's when we get ourselves in trouble.
Rush Limbaugh became a good friend. We had dinner at his
Oh,
house.
wow.
We had dinner at his house, and Jeffrey had just had his left arm amputated at the shoulder. And Rush
Mhm.
reached over and grabbed my hand, looked at me, and goes, "Don't you ever do that to me again." I said, "Do what?" He says, "You needed my help and you wouldn't ask because I was Rush Limbaugh. Don't ever do that to me again." And it's like you said, God put him in a very special place during this time period where Jeffrey was going through this for 14 months, and uh, sometimes we don't recognize the help that God is giving us. Okay. And again,
Oh,
when Jeffrey passed away, when Jeffrey passed away, his container for his remains was like a half inch too wide to fit into the back of uh, Russia's Gulfstream 550. So he chartered one of the Phoenix Air uh, G3s that takes, SEAL Team 6 and the Delta guys around that had a cargo door. They had a cargo door.
wow.
Okay. And
That's amazing.
because I remember getting on the jet, it was painted gunship gray and black. And
Yeah.
I remember telling the pilots, this thing scream gunship gray and black, Joey, really? This thing screams special operations, and it had a cargo floor, 6 seats, and a clinic inside this G3. Okay. And I
Mhm.
said, this thing just screams special operations. He says, you'll be happy to know that the airplane that your son is going to Utah on, the SEALs Team 6 snipers sat in those chairs that were going to Djibouti to free Captain Phillips of the Maersk, Alabama. All right,
Wow.
which I thought was pretty cool. All right, and again, uh, blessings that really helped us get through a very tough time.
Oh,
And
and in my family, my wife never signed on to be a nurse, never signed on to be a
yeah,
therapist, but it was critical to my recovery and probably our marriage that she took good care of things and took good care of me during that time too. So I'm blessed in that respect as
yeah.
well. So you're right. We don't know sometimes where those blessings are um, until we need them, and it's like we said, don't ignore that voice. Don't ignore what God has given to us um, for us.
How did your wife find out?
So that's a that's another long story because we have a procedure, or we did have a procedure at that time, the 160th. If somebody was wounded, they were going to get a phone call. You were only going to get a visit at the house if if there was a death involved. So my wife and some of the other wives, they had been waiting around all day because it was on
Oh,
the
it's on the
news first
national
thing
news.
this
Yeah,
morning
yeah,
that an MH-47 has been shot down in Afghanistan. Well, not many people know it at the time, but there was only 8 of those in the whole theater. So there's a probability that I
yeah,
was involved in one of them.
yeah.
But she hadn't heard anything. She's waiting all day, no phone calls, no nothing. Um, Funny, you may have known this from the KOC, but for hours, I was thought to be dead because they had seen the door
Yeah,
fall off the front of the aircraft
yeah.
and not move. Well, nobody thought it was the door. They thought it had been my body until communications were able to be established. So I had already been written off as dead on the chalkboard
Yeah,
earlier in the
I
day.
remember that. I remember that.
Um, but so the day goes long. We had a warrant officer, another warrant officer. I won't use his name. He was the rear detachment commander. Um, he literally almost got into a fight with the acting first sergeant, who's still a good friend of mine. He wanted to come and visit Dana and give her the news that I was okay in
Oh,
person.
oh no.
And they fought, and eventually this particular warrant officer won, the rear detachment commander. There was a reason he was a rear detachment commander and not over with us. But a neighbor who also knew what was going on, another commander's wife, as soon as Dana heard the doorbell about 10:30 at night, again, way too late at night, and she said she felt like she was going to faint and pass out right there, but opens the door, and immediately before this warrant officer can say anything, the other commander's wife barges through them. He's okay. He's okay. I don't know why they're here, but he's okay. And then proceeds to tell Dana that I was wounded, but completely broke protocol, scared my wife to death that I was deceased, when he should have just picked up the phone and made a phone call. But it was on the news, so there was no denying that something happened that day. But nobody knew until late that night.
And as you mentioned, you guys were up there on that mountain for a long time. Okay, they didn't send another helicopter.
Over 14 hours.
Yeah, they didn't send another helicopter to come get you guys. And one guy, if I remember right, bled out waiting for the helicopters to come get you guys. Because again, the 4 helicopters, 3 of them are now damaged. All right.
Yes.
One of them is still up on the mountain. Okay. I remember listening to on the CAOC floor. Okay, we're going to drop 2 GBU-12s on your helo. That's exactly what we did. We blew it to smithereens. All right.
Yep.
And
that's a great video, by the way.
It is. Okay.
I hate to see us happen to a Chinook.
I know.
But it was a great video.
It is. Okay. And you, again, you don't like to see it. Believe it or not, that was the second vehicle we had to do that to. We had another one before you guys. An MC-130 was refueling and actually lost. It had a power problem or something like that, and actually like skidded across the top of the mountain and broke up. Okay.
So I was supposed to be on that mission.
Oh, were you really?
A new captain had come into theater, and they asked, "Hey, Greg, can he have your seat tonight? He needs some flying in theater to get used to things. It's kind of an easier mission, and we're going to do some refueling, so it'd be a good experience for him." I said, "Yeah, he can have my seat tonight." And they were literally on the hose and broke off when they saw the terrain coming and the aircraft pancake in. And then they were the first responders to go in and get the crews off the mountain.
See, and we were watching that. We finally got a Predator overhead, and we were watching all this go on. Okay, and the Herc actually broke up when it hit.
Yes.
Right. And it like the back portion of the fuselage kind of went sideways on it and everything like that. And we're going, there's no way we're ever going to get this thing off the top of the mountain. And somebody said, okay, well, who's around's got bombs? Exactly. 2 GBU-12s. And I remember that video also, Greg, okay? Because the video showed up like the next day, and the guy had put the laser dot like right on the center of the wing box. And so both bombs hit literally dead center of that thing. And
if there's any fuel left, that would help.
Yeah, and there's hardly any fuel left and everything, okay? But the thing that was funny is it started an avalanche. Okay, because a lot of the snow,
no doubt,
a lot of that snow, and everything just started moving down the mountain, And I remember specifically watching that all that snow started moving down the mountain, and we go, "Ruh-roh, we didn't think of that. We didn't think of that." Okay.
A lot of people commented after the fact that may have been what helped the crew survive, because they really kind of pancaked in, but there was so much snow up. I mean, foot upon foot of snow up that high in those mountains.
Yeah, it was like thigh high up there, okay, at that time period. We did a thing at the CAOC every night. It was called The Greatest Hits Over Kandahar. And the units would send us their video, Greg, like, this is a good one, this is a good one, this is a good one, okay? The AC-130 guys are psycho, okay? There's no two ways about it, all right? Because some of theirs were pretty grim, as you can imagine, all right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Grim, okay? And
hence their call sign.
Hence I know, I was
Grim.
just gonna say that. Their call sign was Grim, okay? And and I'm not going to go into some of the nastier ones we saw, but they made a commercial out of one video, all right?
Oh my God.
And so it
That doesn't surprise me.
no, it doesn't
They're
surprise you, does it?
matter of fact, those and A-10 drivers are cut from different cloth from the rest
Yeah.
of the Air
Oh
Force, in my
yeah.
personal opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it starts with this truck full of people going like this down some road through all the poppy fields, and it goes to a blank screen and it says, when attacked, get out of the car and run. All right. And so the rounds hit just in front of it, not on the vehicle. So a lot of them just, as you know, there's always a lot of people in these vehicles, like 17
Yep.
people get out of this Datsun King Cab truck and they're running. Okay. And the next blank screen shows them running. And then there's another blank screen that says, don't run too far. Okay. And it shows them running and running again. And then another black screen says, because if you run too far, you'll just die tired. All right. They ran to another vehicle and they had this one zeroed in. Okay. And so some of those 25 or 30 rounds just take the Datsun King Cab truck apart.
It
All
would
right.
only take a couple of those rounds
Yeah,
to
exactly. Exactly.
destroy
Okay.
one of those. It was always amazing to me if the crews had their guns tweaked well. It was amazing how accurate
Oh,
could
yeah.
be. But if they hadn't done a good tweaking on them, good setup,
As we found out in Anaconda.
yes,
Yeah.
on
So
that first day with Chief Harriman.
yeah. So the rounds come in and destroy the truck, okay? And then there's another blank screen. It says, but don't stand still either. All right. And some of the guys had gone north and were standing in one of these poppy fields. And then
Oh,
rounds come in on
they
top of
can't
them
see
too.
us anymore.
Yeah, they can't see us anymore. And then the rounds come in on top of them, All right. And the AC-130 guy is like going, yeah, we made a commercial. Isn't this cool? Isn't this cool? We're like, dude, you're a sick puppy. We're glad you're around. Okay. But you guys are a sick puppy. Okay. And they created a new tactic that they actually put in their tactics manual where, some of those mountain roads and everything, they would actually, drive by like this down the road. Okay. You know what they called it in their tactics manual? They call it a drive-by. They gave it the name drive-by. Okay. We got a new tactic we call drive-by. We're going to show you guys what it looks like. Okay. And we went, you guys are sick. Okay. We like having you around, but you guys are sick.
Yeah, different crowd, but definitely a necessary crowd, and it's just an incredibly lethal platform. But sometimes they were of their most use to us as we used to call it the sparkle, where they could
Yeah.
put a laser on a position or a big IR spotlight that literally light up half a grid square. Um,
Oh yeah.
awesome capability in that
It's an
aircraft.
incredible, it's an incredible intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance asset. Okay. That can fight back. All right. And
Yes.
um, two of the drug boat takedowns, you can tell it's an AC-130. All right. Because there's a lot of little splashes and then there's a great big splash. Okay. A lot of
Hmm.
little splashes. Okay. And they finally, get some of the little splashes on the boat. All right. And of course, it slows down. It's on fire. Okay. And then one of the 105 rounds comes back in and blows it away. All right. Oh, by the way, let me show you something real quick. I just happen to have one of those rounds.
I've got one on my desk that I got from another mission. The the grim element that supported us
Yeah.
brought one of the shells back from the mission that they fired on the objective before we went into it. So
Yeah.
I have one of those shells, and I have one of the 30 Mike shells
Yeah.
as well from that mission sitting on my desk at work.
Yeah. I've got that
Awesome
too.
souvenir.
Oh yeah, but let me show you my recent. Okay, you talk about ships and surface firepower. Let me show you this.
Holy cow! What is that?
It's a 5-inch shell from a deck gun on a destroyer.
Holy cow!
So
That's a big.
63 caliber, 5-inch deck gun. And my buddy Taz, I mentioned earlier, his son is a surface warfare officer, and he brought it to me when I went to Oshkosh. They brought it to me and gave it to me. That's a
I
five
didn't
inch
realize
shell.
those things were
Okay,
so big.
yeah. So it goes up to about my waist and weighs 16 pounds. This is the empty shell, Greg.
Yeah, the empty.
The empty shell. Okay. He says a full up round, I think he said weighs like 76 pounds. Okay.
Oof,
Yeah. Yeah. You
thank
talk about
goodness they have
firepower.
automatic loading capability now instead of the guys
Oh,
back in the
yeah.
old days having to hand throw those into loads.
Well, and they've got different kinds of rounds at the end of them, too.
Oh, I'm
You
sure
know,
there's all kinds of different
there's
specialty rounds
armor
for
piercing,
something that big.
and there's like a CBU round now. I mean, there's just crazy stuff. Okay. But yeah,
Hmm.
that thing literally goes up to my almost my waist and weighs 16 pounds. I put it on the scale to see how much it weighed.
That is a big round.
That is a big, big round. Hey, brother, we've gone through everything, man, that I had.
And you know what? We could probably keep on talking for hours,
Well,
knowing the two of us.
well, and here's the thing. Okay, we've only talked about 2 missions. Your mission on Tacker Gar and going into Venezuela. And I'm sure, like Al, you were involved in so many other things. I mean, there was Tora Bora, there was, I mean, just going into Iraq. You know,
Operation Red Wings. Um,
yeah. Were
both
you
Al and I were there as well.
really?
Uh, during that mission. So yeah, there's
I didn't know you were
a lot
involved
of
with
that.
Red Wings.
Yes,
Did you fly in Red Wings, or you one of the mission
yes,
plan? Oh, I did.
yes. Matter of fact, Al and I were supposed to be the QRF for that mission, but Major Reich and his crews
Uh-huh.
um, had already planned a resupply mission up there for them. So since they were ready to go already, they
Sent them up.
let them take the QRF up there. And unfortunately, we know what happened
Yeah.
from that mission. But yeah, we spent the next couple of nights putting rangers in to secure the crash site and putting people in to continue to look for the team.
Yeah. Yeah. And Marcus is the only one that survives. That's
Yeah, I was the task force TAC ops officer for that one too. So I'm taking the ellipses from the pings off survival radios and trying to correspond and use maps to track where the signals were moving from to see if we could see whether enemy had the radios or it was one of the survivors. Um, Whole lot went into that mission as well. That was the movie seems like make it sound like it was fast, quick, and over in a hurry, but um, there was a lot leading up to that mission, and then there was a lot on the follow-ons behind that. Once again with Army Rangers and the
yeah.
160th.
Well, and you had to go back up and pick up all the bodies too. Murph's body,
Yes.
Axel's body,
Yep.
Axelson, and dude, that's got to be a tough job. Okay. You
It,
know,
it 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 is tough and never got it easier. We initially went in to pick up Johnny Michael Spann at Mazar-i Sharif when he was killed, um, and then unfortunately did that a lot over the next 15 years. Too many times, unfortunately. Lots
and
of good people.
and unfortunately, there was extortion 1-7.
Yes, terrible tragedy there as well.
And
In almost similar aspects to the Turbine 3-3 during Operation Red Wings. Um, yeah, you could go on and on about those two missions, and of course, hindsight being 2020.
yeah, and we talk about picking Maduro up, and how smooth that went. And you and I both know these things don't always go smooth,
No,
you know.
no, they don't. But for the grace of God, again, you know, there was there was a lot of things that could have gone badly wrong. The air defense systems that they have are very, very capable when you're talking about the Buck and the S-300.
Oh
And
yeah.
um,
The
but the
Chinese
fact that we,
radars, the Chinese radars that are supposed to be able to pick up, the F-22 and the F-35, well, that brochure is obsolete now, but
yes,
still,
yeah,
we
good luck
didn't
with the
know that at
foreign
the
military
time.
sales on.
Yeah,
Good luck on the foreign military sales on that now.
exactly. Okay. But we didn't know that at the time,
Yes.
you know?
So um, again, the more work you can put in before a mission, um, again, the more sweat you put in, the less blood you have to shed during. So they're
Yeah.
fortunate that we had a lot of time to prepare for this mission. And as we found out from Takargar, from um, from Operation Red Wings, from Extortion 17, and numerous other missions outside of the special ops community. Um, when you're doing things in extremis, without a lot of planning and a lot of coordination, you you ramp up the risk factors
Big time.
um, infinitesimally. So it's thing. That's why we do templates. That's why we talk about contingencies,
Mhm.
and why the 160th especially probably spends more time training or when things go bad than they do for when things go right. Because inevitably, no plan survives the first shot, and you have to have a plan for when it doesn't. And those guys are incredibly good at that.
Yeah. I like that quote by Dick Marcinko you just had, the more thou sweatest in training, the less thou bleedest in combat, and that applies to
Absolutely.
so many things in life, not just combat on the battlefield, but Kobe,
I tell that to our cadets in preparation to become second lieutenants one day. The more you sweat now, the better you're going to be in your first formation of troops that you're leading.
yeah, I use Kobe Bryant as the example of that. Okay. And
Absolutely.
his work ethic, was just freaking amazing, up at 3 o'clock in the morning on the court by 4, doing all, and that's what made him the superstar that he was, it's the old 10,000 hour rule, isn't it?
Yes.
The old 10,000 hour rule,
Got to do something 10,000 times before you
yeah,
can call yourself an expert at it.
yeah,
It's how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice,
practice.
practice.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in any of our communities. The more you do them, the more you do them as realistically as possible, the better you are, and the less chance you have of falling prey to errors,
Yeah.
falling prey to emotion, falling prey to the enemy. It's all about practice, repetition, and planning.
Yep. Hey, brother, great lessons
Fantastic
learned.
talking to
Great
you again.
story, man. Thank you so much
Always
for
a
doing this
pleasure
with
to
me.
talk to you, Mark.
And like I said, man, I'll send you this stuff so you can use with the cadets. Your cadets need to see this stuff. And
They're a bunch of really good people that are going to make fine Army leaders one of these days.
well, you know what? I may just have to come back and we'll do a joint session with your cadets. Okay.
Oh, that would be really cool. And matter of fact, got it. One of my Air Force counterparts is an Air Force rescue helicopter pilot.
Oh.
So he and I are the only helo guys in the building for the most part. So we always have lots to talk about.
Well, knuckle dragon tanker guy, I'd love to come and talk to your guys and say, hey, this is why you want to be a joint warfighter.
Hey,
We'll work on
some
that.
of my best trips in and out of theater was riding on a KC 135. So you'll never hear me complain about a free ride off a KC 135.
That's awesome, brother. Again, thanks for being on, Greg.
Thank you, and enjoyed speaking to you again, Mark.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lessons from the Cockpit and having Greg back on again. Many of you saw a portion of this episode on Ward Carroll. I was filling in for Mooch, and he had about 39 minutes of it. I wanted you to see all 2 hours particularly Greg's story on the top of Tacker during Battle of Roberts Ridge, but a real insider's look at how does the 160th plan for a mission like Caracas to go grab a very high value person and his wife out of their beds in the middle of the night and do it all in like 88 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, which was brought to you, episode 116, by Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home office or hangar. These are beautiful graphics printed on vinyl that you can peel off and stick to any wall. 4, 6, and 8 foot long. We've done 30 footers for people. There's, I think, 160 ready to print at the wallpilot.com website, or fill out the custom form. If there's one you really want to have on your wall with your name on it, a particular weapons load from a particular unit, we can do it, because I've got like 800 drawings to pick from now. A lot of great airplanes. So go to wallpilot.com, buy 1 or 2 of these, and they're not that expensive, because that's what helps keep the show going. Go by my YouTube channel, Marcus Sarah. You can watch my shorts there. My podcasts are all up there. I do some other things. Going to start doing current events also, because a lot of people have asked, hey, you used to do this for a living. What's going into the planning for an airstrike, air campaign over Iran? And again, Iran is not Iraq, nor is it Syria. There's a lot of different things you have to look at when you're doing this. It's been a pleasure to be with you once again. I promise I'm not going to wait 3 months for another episode. We're going to start cranking these things out. I've got some great guests that are coming on, some very close personal friends of mine, some folks in the Navy, and 1 or 2 people that have flown some very exclusive intelligence platforms. Go join my Patreon All Ranks Club. And thanks for coming by and taking a listen. Sluggo, out here.